Huh? What are you doing in my swamp?
Hello everybody, this is Ogre and I'm going to be doing my ranking for all 32 MCU movies and shows. I really debated on whether I was going to just do two different lists where I rank just the shows by themselves and just the movies by themselves, but I decided since it's the end of the year and everything, and we're not getting any more MCU stuff now that Hawkeye just finished his last episode and Spider-Man No Way Home came out, I was like, I might as well just go ahead and rank them all together one last time for the year. And I'm not going to do another ranking where I do the shows and movies together until next year. At the end of the year, I might start doing that every year, where the shows and movies that come out from the MCU will be my last ranking for the MCU each year, if that makes sense. So since there's 32, I'm going to try to go through them as quick as I can and everything. I'm not going to talk a whole lot about each of them since I've reviewed most of the new ones this year as they came out and stuff and everything, and I've done this ranking a few times already, so I'm not gonna talk too much. That way I can try to make this video as short as possible, because 32 is a lot to go through. Coming in at number 32 is The Incredible Hulk. This one is just one that I've never been a big fan of. I think Edward Norton was okay as the character, but we never got to see him again, so it didn't really matter. I've always preferred Mark Ruffalo in the role, though. I think he's a much better actor for the character. I mean, Edward Norton is a great actor outside of other stuff, and I actually think he's a better actor personally, but I think that Mark Ruffalo fit the character better, if that makes sense. But I think The Incredible Hulk is just one of those, it's never been one of my favorites. It's considered the black sheep of the MCU and everything, although they're starting to acknowledge it more in recent years and stuff. We've got Abomination showing up in Shang-Chi, and he'll be back in She-Hulk, and they're making a new Hulk movie, so hopefully that movie will be a much bigger step up compared to this one. But I think The Incredible Hulk is okay, just not one of my favorites, so it's number 32. And number 31 is Eternals. This movie came out last month, and this was the first MCU movie to really, truly disappoint me in a very long time. I just felt very let down by this movie, and some reason I was way more excited for it than most people were and everything. I thought the concept looked good and everything, but it just relied too much on exposition dump dialogue. The characters were underdeveloped, and none of them really stood out or were memorable, and I gotta applaud them for trying to do something different with an MCU movie, but to me it just fell flat, and it wasn't very entertaining, and I'm kind of curious to see if we'll see any more with these characters, and maybe as time goes on, if we do get to spend more time with them and everything, this movie will start being better and everything, because there has been other stuff on here that to me has made other ones better as time has gone on and everything. So who knows, maybe this will be one of those where as time goes on this could move up, and I've only seen it once, so I mean it could move up on rewatch. But yeah, so Eternals is number 31, and number 30 is What If. This show was just kind of a mixed bag for me. I liked some of the episodes a lot, and then there were some episodes that I just didn't care for, so it was kind of a mixed bag for me. I will say the animation is gorgeous, though. It's some of the most beautiful animation in recent years that I've seen in a movie or show. I will say I love that about it, and I actually would like to see them do movies with this style of animation, whether it's Marvel or not. But I do like the animation in it, and I do like some of the stories and stuff, especially the one with the evil Doctor Strange that we might be getting to see in Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness. I'm curious to see what they do with him, and I'm curious to see if they bring any of these other alternate versions into MCU movies and stuff. I'd love to see a Captain Carter movie or a show or something that's in live action with her too, but I think that What If is okay. So it's number 30, and number 29 is Doctor Strange. This is one that I've only seen a couple times, and it just never has been one of my favorite MCU movies. I've tried to get into it, and I don't know what it is about it. It just can't really get into it. I haven't revisited it in a while, though. Last time I rewatched all these MCU movies, or all the older ones, was when I was getting ready for Captain Marvel, so I'm due for a rewatch on this one and a lot of the movies on this list, so it could move up, but I kind of doubt it. Like I said, it's one that I don't really enjoy very much. I never really have. I will say the visuals in here are amazing, and the performances are great too, and I liked the character of Doctor Strange. I've loved him in the Avengers movies. I liked him in Spider-Man No Way Home, so I think he is a really likable character and stuff. I just don't care too much for this movie. It's one of those slower paced origin stories, and I think that's probably what it is. It's just the pacing is not all that great to me. I don't think it's a terrible movie, but I don't think it's a great one. So it's number 29, and number 28 is Captain Marvel. This one is kind of like Doctor Strange. I feel like it's the pacing and stuff is just kind of off on this one. And it's not as entertaining. It doesn't have a lot of memorable moments it has some fun moments and stuff, like the stuff with her and Nick Fury is a lot of fun, and Brie Larson I think is okay as a character. I don't think she's near as bad as everybody says she is. She's actually one of those actresses that I actually like a lot, but I think she's better suited for indie movies instead of being the lead star in a blockbuster movie like this, although she was good in Kong Skull Island, so maybe it's just the writing on this one. But I think this one is okay. It's not one of my favorites, but it's definitely not terrible either. I don't think it's near as bad as a lot of people say it is and everything. In a way, I think it's a little underrated, but it's just not one of my favorites either, though. So Captain Marvel is number 28, and number 27 is Ant-Man and the Wasp. I really enjoyed this one and the first Ant-Man movie a lot. I think they're both really fun movies, but at the same time, I don't think they're some of the best MCU movies either. Like, there's a lot of other ones I would rather watch over these, but they are a lot of fun, and they're pretty small scale, no pun intended. But this one is a pretty decent sequel. I was a little overhyped for it, though, because of how great I thought Black Panther and Avengers Infinity War were that year, because it came out the same year as them. So I felt like my hype was just a little too high on this one, and I was a little disappointed the first time I saw it, and then I've rewatched it a couple times, and every time I rewatch it, though, I end up loving it, and it's really a fun movie. It could have been better, yes. Could it have been worse? Definitely. There are way worse movies out there than this one, but it definitely isn't one of the best MCU movies, so it's number 27, and number 26 is Ant-Man. I really like this movie quite a bit. I think it's kind of underrated, and it has a lot of really, really fun moments in here. Paul Rudd is excellent as Scott Lang, and his friend Lewis, played by Michael Pena, is just absolutely hilarious. He steals the show every time he's on screen. A lot of people, he's kind of a fan favorite character, but I really enjoy this movie quite a bit, and I love like the friendship he forms with Hank Pym, and his relationship with Hope is pretty good in here. Yellow Jacket, I think, is an okay villain. I don't think he's like one of the best MCU villains, but I think he's fine for this movie. I think he worked for it, and everything. And this does kind of have that origin story template that you get from the MCU and everything that some people are starting to get tired of, but I personally think it worked out fine. It's an okay movie. Not one of the very best MCU movies, but it's a fun time, and I'm never bored with it and everything. So it's kind of an underrated MCU movie. But so the first Ant-Man is number 26, and number 25 is Captain America: The First Avenger. So from this one up, for the next few on here. These are ones that I really like a lot. And just because it's this low doesn't mean I dislike it, because this is a kind of a fan favorite. It's the origin story of Steve Rogers, also known as Captain America, who is a lot of people's favorite character in the MCU. I've always liked Captain America, but I wouldn't say that he's my favorite character. He's probably in my top 5 at least, maybe, but I do love this movie. I think Red Skull was a pretty good villain, kind of an underrated villain, although I wish they would have done more with him. But I think Hugo Weaving was great in the role. The origin story for Steve, and like seeing how small and scrawny he was before he gets the super soldier serum and stuff, is a lot of fun and everything. It's cool getting to see how this little scrawny dude becomes Captain America, and it's really well done. The visual effects hold up pretty well for last time I watched it anyway, and it's really entertaining movie, and it's one of the better origin stories. So Captain America the First Avenger is number 25, and number 24 is Thor, the first one. Now, I really like this one a lot too. When this movie came out, I was starting to notice superhero movies more, still before they really hit the big craze that we're in now, but this one I thought looked pretty good and everything, and it really surprised me on how much I enjoyed Thor. I've always really liked this one and thought that it was really underrated. I mean, even though it's not one of my top favorites and everything, I do still enjoy this one quite a bit. I think it's really entertaining, a good little fish out of water story, and it was a good introduction to the character of Thor and everything. I do say though that it does have some problems when he's on Earth. It kind of slows down, and the pacing is a little bit off, and his chemistry with Natalie Portman is okay. They don't have the best chemistry and everything. I think they could have cast somebody better to play Jane Foster, but this movie is fine for what it is and everything. So Thor is number 24, and number 23 is Thor the Dark World. This one I think is pretty underrated. A lot of people, if they don't say that Eternals is their least favorite, or Iron Man 3, I know a lot of people say this one is their least favorite, and I can get it is a big step down from the first Thor movie. There are some issues in it, and I do have my issues with it, but I actually really like Thor the Dark World. I think it has a lot of fun moments with the stuff with him and Loki, and when you see his mom die, it's really emotional. They did a good job on that, and the relationship with him and Jane Foster still isn't very great, though I will say that, and their chemistry is even worse in this one, it seemed like, and everything. And part of it is you could tell Natalie Portman just did not want to be in this movie. There were a lot of behind the scenes things going on. Malekith is a terrible villain, although the makeup effects on him were pretty cool. I will say he was still a pretty bad villain. He's one of the most forgettable villains, up there with the villains from Doctor Strange. I think they have some of the worst villains in the franchise, but all in all, I think Thor the Dark World is an underrated movie, but it's definitely not one of the best MCU movies either. So it's number 23, and number 22 is Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2. This is another one that I feel is really underrated. I really like this movie quite a bit. I have never really understood the hate for it. Yeah, it's not quite as good as the first one, but it still has a lot of really fun moments, and Kurt Russell is amazing as Ego. He does a really great job playing him. I do kind of wish that they would have done a little bit more stuff with him as a villain, and maybe made it show that he was a villain sooner in the movie, instead of just doing it at the last minute and everything. It took a big turn in at the beginning of the last act, and I think if they would have showed it more or hinted around more and everything, it would have made it better, but you could tell there was something off about him from the get-go. And I do think Kurt Russell is amazing as a character. The cast are all, once again, really great, and it still has a lot of really funny moments and stuff. Maybe not as funny as the first one, and some of it is a little bit mean-spirited, but it is a good movie, and I think it is kind of underrated too, like with Thor the Dark World, but it's still not one of my most favorite MCUs. I love a lot of the other movies more than this one, but I do love this one and everything. So pretty much from this one up are ones that I really love. everything. So Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2 is number 22, and number 21 is Iron Man 2. When I first saw this movie, it was actually, I liked it just as much as the first one, but every time I rewatch it, I start noticing the problems and stuff. Like Whiplash is just kind of a mediocre villain. They kind of sideline him, and the and everything. There's a lot of storylines going on, kind of like with Spider-Man 3, except it's still executed better than that movie was, I gotta admit. But although I do think Spider-Man 3 might be a little more entertaining, I think that this one executes its storylines better. It does wrap everything up by the end of it, at least decently enough, and everything. But they were trying to make this be a sequel to Iron Man and a setup for the Avengers, and it just, they put too much stuff in here at once. It's one of the things that the MCU doesn't do very often, but it does do it in this one. They were trying to set up too much in here, but it's an okay movie. I think if Jon Favreau would have gotten the extra year to make this movie that he wanted, because he wanted to do it, have it released at least 3 years after the first one, I think it would have worked a lot better. But they fast-tracked it and stuff after how successful the first was. But all in all, I think Iron Man 2 is okay and everything. It's not one of the best, but not as bad as a lot of people say it is either. So it's number 21. And number 20 is The Falcon and the Winter Soldier. This was the second MCU show that was released this year, and I really enjoyed this one. I thought it was a lot of fun and everything, but it isn't one of my most favorite shows that we've gotten out of the MCU so far. It has a lot of really fun moments, though, and as I've said before, Captain America isn't my most favorite character, and this movie or show is about his sidekick, so it just kind of is a mixed bag for me. I love Falcon and everything. I don't like some of the things they did with him, and here it kind of just didn't seem right. Like, he just gave away Captain America's shield and stuff. It's like, I don't know why he would do that. I know why he did it. It explains it in the series, and it makes sense, but at the same time, I'm like, it's like, we waited 2 years to find out what you were going to do with that shield, and that's what you did with it. But we got some really interesting characters and stuff, so this one is a decent show, and I need to rewatch it, because I might like it even more on rewatch, and maybe it'll move up, who knows. But I will say also, Zemo stole the show. Every time he was on screen throughout the whole show, he just stole it. And Zemo's always been one of my favorite villains. I've always said that he was like one of the most underrated villains in the MCU so far, and he's really good in this one. So The Falcon and the Winter Soldier is number 20, and number 19 is Loki. When I first heard they were making a show about Loki, I was like, I don't know how this is going to work, because Loki is a character that I love in the MCU. I love him in the Thor movies, in the Avengers, but like, I don't know that him being a main character would work, because a little too much of him could go a long way. But they did a great job with it. Tom Hiddleston gives a really great performance in the show, especially in that first episode when he sees the video and stuff of his family and what his life was supposed to be like in the alternate timeline and stuff. It just, even though it gave me Interstellar vibes, I thought that was a really great moment, though. And everything, him realizing that his family did love him and all that, and he can't go back to him and stuff, was just a really, really good emotional moment. And the female Loki, Sylvie, she's really, really likable too. And I loved how the season ended and stuff. It left off on a big cliffhanger. I can't wait to see season 2. But so far, season 1 is really great and everything. So Loki is number 19, and number 18 is Captain America the Winter Soldier. This is the one that most people would consider to be among the very best MCU movies, and I can get it. It is a really great movie. I love like the espionage feel to it, and it kind of has that spy thriller, political thriller vibes and stuff. I love that about it, and it doesn't feel like your typical MCU movie and everything. I think it's one of the best performances of Chris Evans as Steve Rogers. I think he's really great in this movie, and the big twist with Bucky being the Winter Soldier totally blew my mind when I saw it for the first time. But I'll admit that I didn't really know much about the Winter Soldier and stuff before I saw the movie, so I didn't see it coming. But this movie is okay. I think it's actually better than okay. It's really good. It's not one of my most favorite MCU movies. I kind of always felt it was a tiny bit overrated, because to me there are way better movies and shows in the MCU than this one, but I do enjoy it quite a bit, and I can get why people love it so much. So, Captain America the Winter Soldier is number 18, and number 17 is Iron Man 3. This is one that, just like most people, I did not like this movie when it first came out. I was hugely disappointed in it. I was like, you're going to follow up the Avengers with this, and I felt like it was a huge step down from the first two Iron Man movies. But over the years, as I've rewatched it off and on throughout the years, I've come to love this movie. I think it is a lot of fun and everything. We finally got the real Mandarin in Shang-Chi, so I'm over that whole Mandarin twist being annoying and stuff, and Shang-Chi actually kind of makes this movie a little bit better and everything. I've kind of learned to just accept this movie for the fun moments it has and everything, and it has a really good cast in here, especially Robert Downey Jr. He's great as always as Iron Man, and I think that the villain is kind of weak. Adrian Killian, I think is his name, the guy played by Guy Pearce. He is kind of a weak villain, but aside from that, I think this is still a pretty decent, underrated MCU movie. So it's number 17, and number 16 is Black Widow. It took us over a year to finally get this movie. It was supposed to be out in May of 2020, and everything going on in the world had it be delayed multiple times, but we finally got it. And I know this is one that I thought should have been made a long time ago. It should have came out like sometime after Captain America Civil War, maybe between that one and Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2. But I do think it's a really good movie, and it's really entertaining. The new characters in here are all really great, especially Yelena, played by Florence Pugh. She's just absolutely perfect in the role. I love her in this movie. And also really like Alexei, played by David Harbour. I think he's really great too. And Rachel Weisz is really good as the mom. I cannot remember what her name is, but she's good in here. And it does have a pretty generic villain, one of the worst MCU villains as well. I do agree with people on that. And I don't like the little twists they made with Taskmaster and everything, but aside from that, I think Black Widow is a pretty good movie, and it's a good little origin story for Natasha. We get her origins, but also get to see a little bit of stuff with her and her family when she reunites with them, and they have a lot of fun moments together and stuff, especially in that scene when they're at the dinner table and everything. That's a pretty nice little moment, and it's a fun movie. So Black Widow is number 16, and number 15 is Hawkeye. Now, if you would have told me that I would have thought this show was better than a lot of the stuff it's over, I would have probably thought you were crazy, because Hawkeye is not one of my favorite characters, but I absolutely love this show. And to me, it's more of a origin story, and to me, it's more about Kate Bishop than it is actually Clint Barton and stuff. And she'll eventually take up the mantle of Hawkeye, I'm pretty sure. I can't wait to see what they do with her in there, because she just stole the show. Every time she was on screen, she just is very, very likable. And you get Yelena back from Black Widow, and she's really great in this too. Once again, Florence Pugh is amazing as a character, and you get some really awesome other characters in here, including Kingpin, who comes in towards the end of the series, and he's played by Vincent D'Onofrio from the Daredevil show, which I haven't watched, but this was my first time ever seeing the character, and just from that one episode at the last episode, I was like, dang, this dude embodies Kingpin. Like I've read comics with Kingpin, and it's like this is exactly what I have always pictured the character to be like in a movie or show. He just was absolutely perfect. And I love this show. I think it's a really, really great show. I kind of wish that it wasn't just a mini-series. I'm hoping maybe we'll get more with Kate Bishop and stuff. It also was a great introduction to Echo, who's getting her own show too. I thought she stood out as well. So Hawkeye is really good. So it's number 15. And number 14 is Shang-Chi and the Legend of the Ten Rings. This is easily one of my favorite movies that came out this year from the MCU. It just was a blast from start to finish, and I never expected to like this movie near as much as I did. I figured it was going to be a decent movie and all, but I had a blast with it from start to finish. Simu Liu is just absolutely perfect as Shang-Chi. He is really great in here, and Awkwafina is his best friend. I cannot remember what her name is because I've only seen the movie once, but she steals the show. I love Awkwafina. I think she's a really great actress. Everything I've seen her in is really good, and I love this movie. I think it has a lot of really fun moments, and it expands the MCU world really well, and I can't wait to see what they do with the next one, because this was a really great entry and everything. So Shang-Chi and the Legend of the Ten Rings is number 14, and number 13 is WandaVision. This is easily my favorite show out of the MCU show so far, and I just absolutely love this show. Like, I love all the nods to the classic sitcoms. As somebody who grew up watching classic shows from the 50s, 60s, and 70s, like, I watched shows from all different eras as a kid because of my parents and my grandparents, so I've always been a big old school sitcom fan and everything, and they play tributes to some of my favorite shows like The Brady Bunch and Roseanne and even Malcolm in the Middle, which I did watch a lot as a kid. Like, they did a really great job with like the way they did the style of the show, and it is a lot of fun. And Elizabeth Olsen is just absolutely amazing in this show. I think she actually got an Emmy nomination. I don't know if she won or not, and she might not have got nominated, I don't remember, but if she did, she really deserved it because she was great in here. And I think WandaVision is a very, very good show and everything, and it's easily my favorite. I know a lot of people didn't like the ending, and I'm kind of mixed on that ending though, but I think for the most part it was really good. I didn't like the Ralph Boner thing. I thought that was kind of dumb, also kind of funny but dumb and everything. I know it made a lot of people mad. It didn't really offend me. I just thought it was kind of dumb and everything. But I think this is a good show. So WandaVision is number 13. And number 12 is Thor Ragnarok. This ain't even really a step up from the first three. This is like somebody just jumped from the floor from one floor to the other and skipped all the stairs, because this is like one of the best MCU sequels out there. And like as far as the quality of franchises go, Thor has been has taken the biggest turn in quality. Like this movie takes the campiness and stuff that you would expect from Thor, like they had in the comics. I've read a few Thor comics and stuff, and this was more in line with that, and I loved it. I thought it was a really, really fun blast from start to finish. It's absolutely hilarious. Chris Hemsworth, when he's funny Thor, he's even better to me and everything, even though he can still be serious and stuff in this movie too. There's still emotional moments with Thor throughout this movie and the next ones that he was in that make it work, where he balances the humor and the heart and the sadness and stuff that you need this character to go through in this movie, and it plays out really well in the next two as well. The events of this movie really have a toll on Thor in the next two movies as well, so I love that about it. It has a lot of ripple effects of what goes on with the character later on, and it's just a really, really fun movie. So Thor Ragnarok is number 12, and number 11 is Spider-Man Homecoming. I thought this was a really great first entry for Tom Holland's Spider-Man, and it is a really fun movie, and I actually think that No Way Home makes this movie even better. Same with Far From Home. I think that the ending of the trilogy really makes this trilogy stand out even more, and everything, now that we fully understand everything that's going on in this trilogy. But this one was a really entertaining movie. I've always really liked it. I do have some issues with it, like Tony Stark giving him the suit and all that, and him relying too much on Stark technology. But at the same time, I love, like, towards the end of it, when when Tony Stark takes his suit back and he has to do things for himself and prove that he can be Spider-Man without having to use Stark's technology, I think works really good. And that scene when the Vulture has him pinned down from all the rubble inside that building and stuff, and is ripped right out of the comics, one of the best scenes in any Spider-Man movie. I absolutely love that. Vulture is an excellent villain. Michael Keaton does an excellent job, and I just really like Spider-Man Homecoming and everything. And it's number 11, and number 10 is Avengers Age of Ultron. This is one that I have never understood the hate for. I know a lot of people just don't like this movie, and it is a step down from the first Avengers movie, and it's definitely not as good as the two that came after it. But I do feel this movie is really underrated. I always have, pretty much from when it first came out. I've always thought, like I don't get the hate on Avengers Age of Ultron. It does have some of the same issues that Iron Man 2 had, where they're setting up a lot of future stuff, and here in this, really the only other movie where they do a lot of that. But I think it works and everything. It doesn't bother me very much. We get to see the awesome little background for Hawkeye and see that he has a family and stuff. We learn more about him because he was the most underdeveloped character in the first movie, so I thought that was really awesome too. And it has some really great moments. I think Ultron is a very underrated villain and everything. He's really, really great. And What If, I thought, did him justice. That's one of the things I loved about What If, is we got to see a really crazy, good villainized version of Ultron and everything. But to me, this movie is really underrated. So Avengers Age of Ultron is number 10, and number 9 is Black Panther. This is one of the most divisive MCU movies out there. I know a lot of people love it, and I know a lot of people hate it because they say it's overrated as hell, and I don't get it. I've never understood why people thought it was overrated. I've always thought this movie was great. There's just something special about this movie and everything. It was one, kind of like with Shang-Chi, that I was looking forward to it and stuff. I loved Black Panther and Civil War, so I was looking forward to seeing his own movie and stuff, but I never expected to like it as much as I did. I didn't expect that it would end up being in my top 10 favorites when it first came out. In fact, it might have even been in my top 5, or close to my top 5 at least, when it first came out. It's moved down because of other ones that have came out since then, but this one is just really great. Chadwick Boseman was excellent as the character, and it was a really great introduction to the world of Wakanda and all these other new characters and everything. And while I am still going to see Black Panther Wakanda Forever, and I am kind of looking forward to it, I just don't know how they're going to do it without Chadwick and T'Challa. I'm not as interested in the sequel now as I would have been if Chadwick was still alive and we could see T'Challa again, because he's a really great character, and he was becoming one of my favorite MCU characters, and he still is. I really do love T'Challa and everything. But yeah, so Black Panther is number 9, and number 8 is Spider-Man Far From Home. This was a really, really good sequel to Spider-Man Homecoming, and I was not expecting a lot out of this movie when it first came out. By the time this one came out, we had already gotten Avengers and Endgame, and I just wasn't ready for another MCU movie. This one came out just 2 months after Endgame. I was like, it feels too soon. I honestly kind of think they should have waited a year to release this one, which thank God they didn't, because we wouldn't be where we're at now if they would have waited. But I think that, but at that time, that's what I was thinking. And when I saw the movie, I changed my mind and everything. This is a really, really fun movie. It's one of the most different Spider-Man movies because he's not just in New York. They take him throughout Europe and stuff, which I thought was cool. Now, I know a lot of people complain about the Tony Stark glasses and stuff, that it was out of character for Tony Stark leaving him the glasses, and I've been doing a lot of thinking on that. We find out at the end that Nick Fury was a Skrull. I think it was Talons or Talos, or however you say his name, the guy from Captain Marvel. But it makes me wonder, were those glasses really meant to be given to Peter, or is that going to later tie into part of the storyline of Secret Wars that's coming out on Disney Plus here in a few years? Who knows? I'm just kind of curious about that, where they're going with it. But I think there was a lot more meaning behind it than we know yet, and that's why I'm not complaining too much about it. If it is just that, then that is a dumb reason. There is no reason for him to give such advanced technology to him just yet. But like I said, we'll see what happens. But I think that this movie is really good, and I've always really enjoyed this one. It's actually kind of one of the more underrated Spider-Man movies, like especially out of the newer ones. Like, people they love Homecoming and No Way Home, but this one just kind of gets swept under the bus, and everything that happens in No Way Home happens because of events in this movie and everything. So I thought that was it's a good little stepping stone to that movie and everything. So Spider-Man Far From Home is number 8, and number 7 is Iron Man, the one that started it all. The fact that this movie is still this high on the ranking after all these years, it just really shows how great this movie is to me. I absolutely love it. Robert Downey Jr. was absolutely perfect as a character, and I remember when the movie came out, I had a family friend that said that they didn't see how Robert Downey Jr. was going to be good as Iron Man because of his drug past and stuff. Like, he was still kind of newly sober and everything. I know a lot of people were skeptical, and I didn't really know anything about the character, so I didn't really know what to think on his casting. I didn't know much about him or the character, but this is one of the best casted superhero characters of all time. To me, he ranks up there with Tobey Maguire's Spider-Man and Tom Holland's Spider-Man and Hugh Jackman as Wolverine. I think he's one of the best casted superheroes in any Marvel stuff, and to me, he's probably the best casted character in the entire MCU. Robert Downey Jr. He is Iron Man. He's perfect in this role and in this movie, and just from the very first few minutes of it, he just becomes a very likable character, even though he's kind of a sarcastic asshole and stuff. You just can't help but like him and everything. I absolutely love this movie. So Iron Man is number 7, and number 6 is Guardians of the Galaxy. I absolutely love this movie. This, like everybody, nobody really knew who the Guardians of the Galaxy were except for maybe the big comic fans and stuff. But people who were fans of the movies and stuff, they had never heard of Guardians of the Galaxy, and I definitely never had, and everything. And this movie just totally took me by surprise. I had a blast with it from start to finish, and every time I watch it, I always forget how much I love it. It's so much fun. It has an excellent cast, especially Chris Pratt as Star-Lord. He just, to me, he's my favorite character in the whole Guardians of the Galaxy team. I love Chris Pratt in the role, and I personally think he's a pretty decent actor and stuff. I like a lot of his stuff as an actor and everything, and I love him as Star-Lord. I like the rest of the cast too. Even Dave Bautista, who I'm not a very big fan of outside of the Guardians of the Galaxy and Avengers stuff that he's been in. I don't really care for him as an actor, but I think he's good as Drax. I think he's perfect as that character. And Zoe Saldana as Gamora is great. Groot is just a really lovable character. Vin Diesel does a great job playing him or voicing him, and I just love this one. And Bradley Cooper is Rocket. He steals the show. Like, all of these characters have their moments to shine and everything. And it's just a really fun movie. So Guardians of the Galaxy is number 6, and also it has a killer soundtrack. Number 5 is The Avengers. This was the very first big team-up movie that could have ended the MCU. If this movie would have gone bad, it would have put an end to the MCU right then and there. And they took all these characters from the movies, the 5 movies before it, and brought them together and somehow it worked. I don't still am shocked that it worked as well as it did, but they did it, and it's been a crazy ride since then. But it's hard to believe how far we've come with this movie, and it hadn't even been out 10 years yet, and it feels like it's been ages ago because there's been so much going on in this franchise since this one. But I absolutely love the Avengers. I think it was a really, really great movie, and that first time you see all of them in that scene where it goes in a circle and stuff, and that awesome score from Alan Silvestri is playing, it just really awesome scene. The whole New York fight scene with all of the characters is a lot of fun to watch and everything, and it just is really, really great movie. Loki was a really excellent villain for this first movie, and I really love it. So the Avengers is number 5, and number 4 is Captain America Civil War. This is another one that really, really surprised me on how much I liked it. I love the first 2 Captain America movies, and this one I was really, really hyped for because it was they brought Iron Man in here, and he's somewhat a villain in this one a little bit if you look at it from Captain America's point of view. But I love like the big disagreements they have, and like how both characters' motivations are understandable. Like, you can understand where Iron Man's coming from, you can understand where Captain America's coming from, and I love that about it. And that ending, though, it just, for a long time, it really bothered me that Cap never told Iron Man about Bucky and stuff. But over time, I've come to respect it for what it is. And also, this is one where we get introduced to Spider-Man and Black Panther, and I think they both got really great introductions to their characters and stuff. And that airport scene is one of the funnest scenes in the entire franchise, when all these heroes are just fighting each other and everything, and Ant-Man becomes Giant Man, and it's just so much fun and everything. I absolutely love this movie. So Captain America Civil War is number 4, and number 3 is Avengers Infinity War. I just absolutely love this movie, and it is one of the best Avengers movies. I know there are a lot of people that even would say that it is their favorite Avengers movie, and I've seen a lot of people say it's their favorite MCU movie altogether. And I can completely get that, because it is an epic superhero movie. Like getting to see all these characters to interact, like ones we've never seen interact, like Iron Man and Spider-Man, Doctor Strange interacting, and getting to see them interact with the Guardians of the Galaxy is so much fun. Thor and the Guardians of the Galaxy is a lot of fun to watch, and it just has so many great moments in here. Like it's just a lot of fun, and just talking about it makes me want to watch it, because I absolutely love Infinity War, and so many great moments. Thanos is easily the best MCU villain. He just is intimidating as heck, and he just does a really great job in here, and I absolutely love the performance from Josh Brolin. I think he's excellent as Thanos, and I love this movie. So Avengers Infinity War is number 3, and number 2 is Avengers Endgame. This is barely number 2, and for the longest time, pretty much ever since this movie came out, it was number 1 and everything, which if you've been following, you probably know what my number 1 is, and I'll get to that in a minute. But I absolutely love this movie. Everything that I wanted in this movie was paid off in here. It was really, really great. It is a slower paced movie. There's not a lot of action till towards the end of it and everything, but it has some of my favorite character moments, just the characters interacting throughout the whole movie, and like them, just scenes of them talking, trying to figure out how to bring these people back and stuff is a lot of fun and everything. I love just watching them, and you got some really interesting character arcs. I will say there are things about it I didn't like they just totally overskipped Hulk's transformation, which who knows, maybe they'll play into that in the next Hulk movie, or in the She-Hulk show, who knows. Maybe that's why they skipped over it. Maybe they're they had things planned out for it later down the line. But I didn't like that they just overskipped his transformation into Professor Hulk. But that big final battle at the end, it's just full of awesome fan service, some of the best fan service out there that I never thought could be topped. But it has been by my number one spot. So there's not much else I could say about Endgame except that I absolutely love it. It's such a great movie and everything. So it's Avengers Endgame is number 2. But my new number 1 favorite MCU movie is Spider-Man No Way Home. I never in my wildest dreams expected that this movie was going to live up to the hype. Like, this was probably the most hyped I've been for a movie in a very long time, probably since Toy Story 3. Like, I was having trouble sleeping and watching other movies and stuff the days leading up to this because I was so excited for it, and it is such a satisfying payoff to this not only trilogy, but one of the most satisfying Spider-Man experiences I've had in a long time. It's easily the best Spider-Man movie since Spider-Man 2 in 2004, which I know I said that about Spider-Man Far From Home as well, but they really delivered on this movie. Like it does have a lot of fan service in here, but it doesn't undermine the story. Everything that bringing all these villains and stuff back really paid off, and you get to that third act and everything, and it just gets some of the most epic and amazing moments in here. Something I've always wanted that I never expected we would get to see happen in this movie happened in here, and stuff that I've just dreamed about for years happens in this movie, and characters returning that I never thought I'd see again makes it even more awesome. I absolutely love this movie. There's some really good emotional moments too in the second act and at the beginning of the third act that just help tie this movie perfectly, makes it good, and Tom Holland really comes into his own as Spider-Man in this movie, and I really hope that we do get more movies with him. I know he's talking about taking a break from acting and stuff, so we might not, but I really hope we do, and everything. There's a lot of other things I want to say about it, but I'm not going to because I'm keeping it spoiler-free since it's a new movie, but you can hear my full thoughts on that here in a couple weeks. I'm going to be, or I think next week, I'm doing my spoiler review of the movie, so you can hear my full thoughts on it then. But yeah, so Spider-Man No Way Home is easily my favorite MCU movie hit now and everything. I've seen it 3 times to fully confirm my feelings on it and everything, and I've seen it 3 times already, and I want to go again. I haven't felt like that with a movie in a very long time. Even Avengers Endgame, I saw it 3 times in the theater, and I was like, okay, that's enough and everything. Although, as much as I love that movie, it didn't make me want to keep going back every week. And of course, that was also due to competition too. There were so many other movies coming out at that time that I wanted to see, so I kind of had to hold off on seeing it multiple times. But this one, hasn't been a movie where I've wanted to go see it as many times as I can in the theater in a very, very long time and everything. This is just one of the most satisfying movie experiences ever. So Spider-Man No Way Home is easily my number 1 favorite MCU movie. I've always said that if they brought Spider-Man into the MCU, there would be one that would end up being my favorite MCU movie, and I never expected it would take as long as it did, but everything paid off. And like I said, there's a lot of things in here that I didn't like about the franchise that this totally fixes and makes things make sense and stuff too. If you've seen the movie, you know what I'm talking about. But anyway, that's all I'm gonna say about No Way Home and everything. But yeah, so anyway, let me know in the comments how you would rank the MCU movies. If you don't want do your full ranking, tell me your favorite and least favorite, and I hope you enjoyed this video, and I'm sorry if it's too long. I know it is a pretty long video, more than likely, because that's a lot of stuff to go through, but I hope you enjoyed the video, and have a good day, everybody.
Ah!